What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Shooting the Shit Uncensored. It's Thursday night, it's 9 p.m. I want everyone to sit back, relax, pour yourself a stiff one, crack yourself a cold one, roll yourself a green one, baby. Sit back, relax, because we're going to put on an amazing show for you guys this evening. I have a very special guest, Mr. JB Hazard. But before I bring JB out, I just want to take a quick pause just to appreciate some of the amazing shows that we have here on the MWA Podcast Network. Tomorrow, make sure you tune in for Get Funked with former WCW star Alan Kwee Funk for his weekly show at 9 a.m. Australian time. Tune in for that. That's 7 p.m. USA Eastern. Alan's got a great guest coming on the show. He's going to be joined by former WCW star Kid Romeo. So you want to tune in for that. It's going to be a hell of a show. And then the next day at 10 a.m. Australian time on Saturday, tune in for Killing the Business with former ECW original, the Kingpin Angel motherfucking Medina. And then if you want to get some more wrestling, make sure to tune in to Nights of the Gimmick Table every Sunday night at 9 p.m. USA Eastern, which is Monday, 11 a.m. Sydney time. So make sure you check out those amazing shows and also check out this show, Shooting the Shit Uncensored, baby. You know, we drop shows every single week. We drop multiple shows a week. I'm also going to be dropping another one this Saturday night at midnight, baby. So make sure you tune in for that one. That's going to be a great show. Also, if you're in Sydney, head out to Bonnie Rig Sports Club tomorrow night. I'm going to be making my ring announcer debut, so I'd love to see you all there. But guys, let's thank some sponsors real quick. First up is A-Rock Designs. Now, A-Rock Designs is that company that you always hear me motherfucking raving about. These guys make custom cups, tumblers, hoodies, keychains, you name it, they make it. They made me this. Whoop, there is it. That custom CM Punk tumbler over my shoulder that you can see there. It's absolutely amazing. Make sure you check them out. They ship from Georgia in the United States, where they make all these products and they ship them out worldwide, baby. So no matter where you are in the world, you can get your hands on a custom tumbler or custom top. So hit up Ashley Rodriguez and you will not be disappointed. Next up is Signal Studios. Now, Signal Studios is that company, that recording studio that work with such amazing bands like the Cicadas band, who is the band that provides all the music for all of the intros here on the MWA Podcast Network. Signal Studios, if you're an independent professional wrestler, you need some new entrance music, you need something hip, something dope, something woke, something cool, whatever the kids are saying these days, but you need something good, then you need to hit up Signal Studios. These guys can mix, master, and produce. They work with amazing artists, and they can make you a custom track, and they can ship it out anywhere in the world. It's that easy. Hit them up. Or if you're a musician, you're a singer, you're a guitarist, you're in a band, you need a place to rehearse, a place to jam, a place to get those creative juices fucking flowing, then you will not find a better or more comfortable place to do that than the Signal Studios rehearsal place in West Ryde in Sydney. So make sure to check those out. Guys, I have been talking for way too long, and I'm going to bring out my guest of honor this evening. He is the SUPLEX undisputed champion, I believe two-time undisputed champion, JB Hazard. JB, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Piers. Cheers.
Oh, man, it's great to have you on, dude. It's, talking to you, backstage, man, like, you kind of have an interesting story of breaking into the business, man. A little bit older than most people that break in, breaking in around 26, 27 years of age, man. And, what was the deciding factor for you to go, you know what, I'm going to give this a go?
So I'd always played rugby league growing up. Probably played that for around 15, 16 years. In my last year of rugby league, which was in 2018, got a really bad concussion. I was off work for 4 weeks. I was medically cleared to play again. I played the rest of the season after having 4 or 5 weeks off. And then after doing it, mentally, I just wanted to finish the season, but I was always in the back of my mind, it was a pretty scary thing. I couldn't remember, people's names and shit like that when I was in hospital. But I finished the season and did that, and I kind of made a decision. I was like, I don't want to play footy again. I was, sick of being, sore every Monday, Tuesday morning. Well, like wrestling's much better. But there's risk of concussions when you're continually slamming into each other in a less than controlled environment, I'll say.
Mm.
And then there was a local suplex show near where I lived. I went and watched that. And this is the first indie wrestling show that I had ever been to, mind you. I wasn't, I guess, a massive fan of the indie scene. I didn't know anything about the indie scene in Australia at that time. But I'd seen posters up, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. And my wife and I went, and a couple of friends, and it was fun. We had a great time. And then a couple of months, or the next year, the start of 2019, there was an ad for it on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah.
And my wife told me about it. And he goes, that night you were saying you could do this, because I was in the crowd drinking beer, saying, I could do this. This looks fun. I could do this. I could do this. I could do that. And overconfident that I am. And I was like, yeah, I'll go and try that. And went to open tryout. Rest is history kind of thing.
Do you think that, giving it a try, like, it sounds like your wife was really supportive in this. Like, were you like a constant fan? Were you always, tuning in, watching it regularly?
Man, I didn't watch wrestling since I left. I stopped living at mum and dad's house, kind of thing. When they had Foxtel. And I'd watch it every now and again. And then I didn't watch it for years, apart from like things like little bits and pieces that you see. I had a couple of old tapes that I had when I was a kid, but I didn't watch it. So my last memory of wrestling was like watching it properly, like every weekend when you're watching Raw and SmackDown, was probably around 2006, 2007. I think the last wrestling game that I bought was SmackDown versus Raw with ECW, and I'm pretty sure that was around 2007, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I loved it then. So yeah, I wasn't like a continuous fan. Like I said before we were on air, I didn't know about the indie scene in Australia. I didn't know about the indie scene in America, mind you. I didn't know about it anything apart from what I'd seen growing up through the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression era and ECW tapes. And that's what was my understanding of pro wrestling.
Yeah. And I think, like, as well, like going in there, I suppose, like, and starting your training, you're not as heavily influenced as what other people would be as far as like what sort of style, what sort of character. It must have been more of a very natural sort of feel for you to sort of go through that, but without sort of having that such, you know what I mean? Like, it's like a musician when they listen to different types of music and then they start sort of like writing similar sort of tracks to what they've been listening to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I come in with an outside eye and an outside ear for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, quick shout out, Lowrider, for tuning in. Make sure you catch him on nights of the Gimmick Table every Sunday, 9 p.m. USA Eastern. This week they're going to have Dan Maff on, and they're going to be talking about some pretty crazy stories from back in the day in the US indie scene in the early 2000s. So make sure you tune in for that. But as far as when you go to the tryout, you go into the training, what was your first thought and reaction when you walked into the doors there and really saw what the training entailed?
I think when I first walked in, everyone come up and was like shaking hands, being very respectful. That's the first thing I noticed. It was a very respectful place, and you could, even without knowing, but I could tell that what was happening was rooted in tradition. And pro wrestling world is very much rooted in tradition, which is pretty cool. It's its own world, and that's what I noticed straight away. And open tryouts, what you're doing is you might do a couple of rolls, a couple of bits of fitness and stuff like that. So to me, coming from a sporting background, it wasn't. I didn't find it too strenuous at first. I could do those things. I could do, But yeah, the first thing I noticed was knowing that wrestling was rooted in tradition.
And did you respect it going into it, or were you like, how hard could this be?
Well, maybe a little bit of both. Um, Not so like how hard can this be? Because I always go into things like you give it your best shot and be confident in whatever in everything you do. Doesn't matter if you're at the bottom of the pile or the top of the pile. You need to be confident, unless you're not going to achieve anything. So I went in there with confidence, but also ready to learn as well. To know that I was at the bottom of the pile, and I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could do well, but I knew I had to listen as well, if that makes sense.
100%.
So I knew that, there was an era of confidence there, but you can't be overconfident and not be and have humility as well. There's a fine line between the two.
And I think as well, I mean, if you go in there overconfident, the first thing that people are going to think is this guy doesn't respect this. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like considering where you're at now, if someone came in and was doing shit and then just went, how fucking easy is that? You'd be like, you fuck.
Yeah.
But how did you, obviously, you come from an athletic background, but how did you feel going through that training? Because pro wrestling, people compare a pro wrestling match to a minor car accident, depending on the wrestling match, depending on how minor that car accident would be. But how was your body feeling and reacting to learning the business, like taking the bumps and getting suplexed and slammed and all that sort of good shit?
To honest, pretty well. I didn't. I wasn't waking up every morning after I'd go to training and feeling shit house. I felt rather well. I was finding that I would need to stretch different parts of my body, especially coming into it older. Like we had a lot of guys there that were training with us, starting at 18, 19, early 20s, and I started when I was 26, which is obviously pretty young, right?
100%.
But you kind of over that mound where you need to stretch before you do things, unless you're going to fuck something up. I was finding like niggling neck injuries were happening, and I'd always had kind of shoulder problems from league, but they were impact injuries, not tweaking injuries, and that's what I was finding with wrestling. So it was more so with wrestling, you need to be able to control your body movements and control your body so you don't get hurt, to know the movements properly. So that's what I was finding with the training, that I needed to perfect the rolls properly, perfect the bumps properly, perfect my feet work properly, because if I wasn't doing that the right way, that's when I'd get niggling injuries.
Yeah.
Not so much the impact of it, not so much the brute force.
It's more of like just the aftercare and before care, and in between, taking care of the body and, making sure the stretching and rehabbing is done. Yeah,
I grew up like skateboards, mosh pits, footy games. So I was kind of used to hurting myself.
Yeah.
So landing and like getting hit, fine with that. It was the change of pace.
Yeah, and what was it? Like obviously now getting into the business and wrestling. How long did it take you to go from being a trainee to having your first match?
I think I started in maybe late April, and I debuted in a Rumble or a Battle Royale maybe around September, and had my first singles not long after that. So it didn't take me a great deal of time, but I don't think that I was maybe would be able to put together a proper singles match until 6 months after that, I think. Yeah.
And what were some of the things you walked away from learning after those first few matches? Like, did you walk away with anything that you learned from them?
It's not about the spots, it's about the story. I think, that's probably the most vital thing that I still think about in wrestling. That in essence, we're storytellers. And it's not about the spots; it's about the stories that we tell.
And you as a character, JB has the character. What is it? The story that you want to tell?
I want to tell a story that I'm not coming from a, say, pro wrestling background, that I haven't learnt the flashiness of what as an art form that pro wrestling has come to be. I don't know if you've seen any of my intros, but I get billed from a suburban shed. So JB has it from a suburban shed. So I want to come across as the guy next door, but the guy next door that kind of has that strange, weird, like, look in his eye that will do something hurtful to you. You piss him off. If that makes sense. So I want to come across as the hazard thing is I'm doing these moves that they don't look perfect. They kind of look dangerous. They look hazardous. If I jump off the top ropes, it doesn't look clean.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had this background of training that's led up to this. And I want to use that to my advantage to tell stories.
And, the thing is that makes, having the moves not look so crisp, it makes it look 10 times more believable, because in a real fight, how many times do you see a punch land clean? You know what I mean? Like a perfectly thrown punch.
It's a perfect analogy. I like to say that it's like an arm drag, a simple arm drag. If you take an arm drag, you're taking that beautiful front roll or shoulder roll perfect every single time. It looks great. You're creating a great gymnastic effort. But every now and again, if you take that shoulder roll wrong and you smack them out a little bit too hard, that's where it's kind of like, oh, this is a fight. This has a bit of feeling about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it gives it that sort of grittiness, you know what I mean? Like, to sort of put that out there and saying, like, this is like, this guy is not mentally stable. Like, he is a little bit sort of like screw loose as well. Like, he can't even.
I recently watched the RVD, the doco that they put out about RVD, and what Paul Heyman said about, like, the jumping moves it is like, and I kind of disagree, because RVD looks good at whatever he does, but he said that it didn't look athletic. It looked dangerous when he did these things. And I only watched this last week. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, you kind of agree with that, because a lot of his moves they did look dangerous, and that's what made the appeal to it.
Yeah, that's right. But he made it look so good. I don't make it look like he does.
So, what made you decide to come up with a character like JB Hazard?
Like I was saying before, my memories of professional wrestling come from ECW tapes when I was a kid. They come from Attitude Era. They come from Ruthless Aggression Era, when there was kind of this urban warrior sense to professional wrestling. It wasn't this feats of athleticism and this artwork that we see now. It was kind of like brawly. It was grimy and it was grungy. And it's also that's the kind of music I listen to as well. I listen, punk rock. I listen to grunge music. I listen to, California stoner rock kind of stuff. And it's that edge of society, grunginess. And my favorite movie is Fight Club. And I wanted this Tyler Durden-esque kind of counter culture guy as a character. So, like, my music tastes, my last memories of professional wrestling, watching it growing up, and the Tyler Durden character, and that's kind of mushed into one, I think.
And do you feel like your original vision for the character is what it is now?
I think I went away a little bit, but now it's starting to come back to where it needs to be. Yeah. I think so. I think that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do anyway.
Do you see it now as what you envisioned it, though? Like, as far as like promos to in-ring style, like, was that how you envisioned how it would be?
I think that I think I've gotten better at the athletic side of things in my in-ring. I think I'm doing things a lot cleaner than I thought I could do. In that sense, I thought that maybe I was just going to be a straight-up brawler, but I'm not. I've got a lot of brawling aspects to my in-ring work, but I'm not a straight-up brawler. So, yeah, that's changed. Attitude-wise, I think I've become more loud and in your face than I first envisioned the character.
Yeah. And I think that because of the character that you've just described, it would be that in your face, that real awkward,
Yeah,
uh, psychopathic almost,
yeah,
character.
yeah. It's kind of finished the promo with like the eyes, but also a smile at the end. You know.
Yeah, just to add that creepiness to it. And I feel like when people do a creepy character like that, they can do it, in so many different ways. You know what I mean? And it's like like there are very few can actually do it and make it really, really believable.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I
not
mean?
a,
Like,
it's like a creepy character, like a psychopath, but I want it to be like an average person that with this streak of violence. So there'd be two types of JB essentially, and you can liken this to like the character. I heard this in an interview with Mark Hamill, who plays the Joker in the cartoon series, the Batman
yeah,
cartoon series, and he said there's two Jokers. There's one comical Joker who gives you the gun and the bang comes out, right, and he plays tricks, and then there's the other Joker who's a psychopathic maniacal clown killer. There's two, and maybe not to the extreme of a psychopathic killer. JV's not like that, but
yeah.
JV's more like there's two sides where I can play this kind of smart ass baby face, but also this kind of grungy
Cold
brawler fighter. Yeah,
yeah.
I can do both.
And as far as your ring style, and saying that it's you've got the brawling style and you do different aspects of style of wrestling. What is the style of wrestling? Is brawling and like hardcore matches more of the sort of style that you enjoyed to watch as a fan, and is that the sort of style that you try and put out more?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Early 2000s wrestling and old ECW tapes is what I would enjoy more watching. And if I on the network now, that's what I watch. Mixed with like current, I watch all the current stuff as well, especially NXT stuff. I watch AEW now, but if I go back to, if I was to sit down, I just want to watch some wrestling. I watch that. I watch that stuff, and not straight up just hardcore for the sake of hardcore. But the way the ECW used to do it is they used to have singles matches, but then all of a sudden it would have this hardcore element into it.
Yeah.
And this brawly element. Just start off like a normal singles match and then it'll digress into all these strange avenues. And that was pretty exciting.
And that's the thing, like that ECW style was always very fast paced. It'd be like someone be cutting a promo, then someone comes out, attacks them, then there's a match. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. But it kept you on your toes.
But the thing is, it kept the show just going like completely smooth. Like it was a good transition into a match where you didn't necessarily need the big announcement. It was just like these dudes are just fucking fighting,
Yeah.
And I think,
I think towards the end, sorry, keep going.
No, you go.
I think towards the end, that people kind of like got sick of it because it just kind of got too sporadic, and you couldn't do that now. That place in history of when it happened, it served it perfectly.
Oh, 100%. And I think it comes down, with wrestling, comes down to what society is going through at that time. And, back then, that sort of in your face kind of culture and, full on, political correctness out the window. That was what that time was.
Yeah.
But, where do you say you're watching wrestling now, but like, where do you watch wrestling for inspiration, or is it more of like you're sitting there watching it as in, okay, this guy does this really well. How does he do that? Are you strategically watching it now?
Yeah, I definitely strategically watch it, especially new stuff. New stuff I strategically watch to see how they do things to stay current, because if you wrestled like 25 years ago, you're not going to be relevant in today for our crowds today. So today's stuff I definitely watch for relevance, and then I go back to older stuff to watch for enjoyment and for storytelling and to getting the most out of something small.
Yeah,
which is what they perfected.
And what are some of the performers that you sort of draw inspiration from? Or who are the performers you draw inspiration from?
RVD, Raven, Dreamer, moving into later on, maybe Triple H heel work.
Yeah.
I think that that dude knew that he had kind of backstage heat going on and just used that in his character in the most perfect way imaginable. Lesnar, like in the current, which is like an unpopular choice because everyone's like Lesnar's like so disrespectful to business. Like when Lesnar first came out, man, he made it look like he was fucking hurting people properly.
Yeah,
He was
man. Like,
throwing
what about
people
when he was?
around.
Yeah, dude. Like throwing people into like Rey Mysterio to the fucking the gurney and shit.
Yeah, when he was in this,
Yeah,
was he in the stretcher and he picked the stretcher? No, that was Big. That was Big Show. That's how they did the stretcher match.
that's right. No,
Oh,
he did it.
he
He did it
F5'd the
to
kid with one leg,
Zach Gowen.
and he just went, yeah, ugh,
But
yeah,
it
it's
looked like
brutal.
but it looked like he killed him. You know, and
Yeah,
that's the beauty of someone like him. He has a unique look and a unique style which just fits in well. Like, okay,
yeah,
he wasn't the biggest fan of wrestling, but he does it really well.
yeah. I kind of guys, I'll be like Pete Dunne at the moment.
Mm.
AJ Styles, I think tells a beautiful story every time he gets in the ring. Finn Balor.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a great list of talent for someone, you know, who's been in the business for a couple of years to really sort of draw that inspiration from, and obviously trying to, you know, obviously not mimic it, but sort of incorporate it and make it your own as well. So, you know, do you find yourself doing that a lot, like seeing someone do a move and go, okay, how can I sort of put my spin on that?
Yeah, how can I make that JB? Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, what was the last move that you sort of did that with?
I do RBD's Rolling Thunder and
Mm-hmm.
the monkey flip where he rolls into it and flips over. Rolls into it, forward rolls, jumps up. I do that. And over the last year, didn't originally use it. I was using like a DDT as a signature move, a jumping DDT. I've recently started using a pedigree, but calling it a mongrel, which would be the opposite of a pedigree dog.
Yeah, right. And
Which
do
would
you
suit
make
the
any
JB character, right?
Oh, 100%. But do you do anything to make it different, or do you just use that move?
I use the lead up to it differently, so it means something different. So instead of RVD, when he uses that monkey flip, it's like he'll run up and he normally do like an up and over, go over somebody and back roll and do something like a back flip and then roll up. Whereas I'm just 10 punches whipping in there and going straight into it. It kind of looks like a desperation act of a brawler rather than someone that's slipping around. So the execution of the single move itself would be the same, but how it's used in context is different.
And that comes into how you're telling the story in a ring, right? Like you're doing the aspect of, you know, going through the motions, which is the same move essentially, but the setup is different, which tells that different story.
Yeah, the context is different.
Shout out to Alan Funk tuning in. Make sure you check out Kiwi's show tomorrow morning. Get Funked, as he's going to be joined by Kid Romeo. So make sure you tune in for that one. But yeah, man, like I think there's a lot of good in what you're saying about sort of making things your own. I think anyone can go out there and really mimic someone else's move and it not make a great deal of sense, where I think that if you sort of incorporated it and put a bit of creativeness behind it, you're going to be able to get, you know, a much broader play.
Yeah.
So, but you know, you started wrestling, you know, and training at SUPLEX. You know, and you mentioned that being very respectful place, everyone shaking hands and built on a foundation. You know, what was some of the more surprising things for you when you were sort of training and learning the business?
In what sense? In like how to perform a certain move or how to?
No, I think just sort of like learning, you know, what did you find difficult? Like, was there anything that you found difficult about sort of going through the process? Like, was, obviously, what was the most, let me put it like this. What was the most difficult part you found of training and then becoming a wrestler?
The way that like a story is told in a wrestling match, I needed to be told to me in like a sequential order for it to make sense. Because I understand storytelling. I work in education. I understand storytelling, and so that part of it made sense to me. So they were saying, okay, this part of the match needs to be about this, and this part about the match needs to be about this, and to work that into like transfer my previous understanding to what I was being told about pro wrestling and make the connections between the two. That was probably the most difficult. And I found once I understood the story of a match well enough, that's when I really started to progress.
Yeah. And, once you sort of got that down, did you find it was then easier putting matches together for you?
Yeah. Now I find that I speak up a lot more putting matches together, not mattering like who I'm wrestling against, whether it's somebody who's new or somebody who's been wrestling for 10 years. Yeah, respectfully, of course. That's my favorite part about it, is telling the story. So in an ideal world, to put a wrestling match together, I would lay the story, the foundation out, and then they can just put in the little bits of magic that they know. But I like to lay the story out in the first place.
And as far as like storylines go, like, do you like to sort of have like a real in-depth storyline going on? Or do you just prefer like just turn up, perform, do your thing?
I think that to have some background is good in terms of storyline. It's talking about in the Fed, like an ongoing storyline in a certain Fed. Yeah, I think it's good to have. I think it's good to have for especially just the performers, just the athletes to have their own storylines to make it meaningful and keep us involved and keep us wanting to come back. And the fans that come every single show, they're definitely invested in our storylines. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of indie shows is that you get a group of people that might come to one show, but then that's not necessarily going to be at the next show. Or the next show after that, and they might come again in another 5 months or another 6 months, and then they'll come and have a good time. But then, life gets in the way, and they can't come back for a little bit like that. So I think it's good to have ongoing stories because it works for some people, but they can't be too in depth. Is that what your original question was? Do you like in-depth storylines? And the answer would be no, because I don't think in a context that we're working with, especially at SUPLEX, that it works to our advantage. I think we need to tell the story on the night. To tell a story to the people that are there. So there might be a continual story that fluctuates throughout the night about wrestlers that are on the show, but it can't be too expansive because no one gives a shit if they're not coming back next time or they didn't go last time. It's got to work within the context of the particular show as well.
Oh, look, I 100% agree, and I think indie wrestling, it's definitely hard to have that. To be able to tell like a long in-depth storyline. I think a lot of promotions now are starting to do it, and they start to do it well by obviously utilizing social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube and stuff like that to really be able to tell those stories.
Some feds can do that because they would have the fan base that follow them religiously. Yeah, they have these bigger crowds, and the fans know they want to keep coming. They watch all the promos, and they're going to be at the next show. So in the context, it works. I can only speak on, a very small area that I've worked in, and say that I think that it works better telling a story on the night and not try to make it too big. It needs to be there. There needs to be a story, especially if you got your main event belts or an ongoing feud.
Sure. So can you give me an explanation or an example of how that you would do like a story for that show? Would it be like this wrestler has an issue with this wrestler, or is it more like you're telling the story in the ring with the moves? But like, do you go into the history between these two? Like how does it work?
So last show, we had Craven and I in the main event for the title. The show previous to that, I wrestled one of our guys, Zero. He's a phenomenal high flyer. I would say the best high flyer that SUPLEX has produced. And I wrestled him in this 25 minute massive match with a shoulder injury. But Craven had a cash-in opportunity. He come out, he cashed in, and he won the belt after my match, which is kind of doing the dirty on me. But the next show, people might not have known that. So halfway through the night, Craven comes out, explains what he did. Last show, I cashed in after JB's match. Some people say I did the wrong thing, but I think that I did the right thing and anybody would have done this. So I'm going to ask JB to come out here and shake my hand. And then I come out, I say a few words to him, and then there's that awkward, is he going to shake hands? Are they going to fight right now? What are we expecting? And then you shake hands, and it sets up, okay, there's a bit of respect between these two, but one of them's still kind of bitter about it, and the other wants a fair match. Is JB going to give Craven a fair match because he's still bitter, or did that handshake actually mean something? And I think that's an example of how you can tell a story throughout one single night.
Oh, 100%. And as you said,
but it also is ongoing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can then take that story and be like, same thing. Last show I cashed in that thing, and next month we're going to face each other, and we're
going to do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another one that we did with a tag team, we had a tag team that had been together for a while now. Fans that go every month would have been very invested in this tag team. They were in one of the first couple of matches. I can't remember verbatim of how we did it. And maybe one of them had a singles match later or something like that. But the tag team, something went wrong in the match and somebody made a mistake, and it had kind of a bit of a confrontation at that point. And then later on, one of them come out to apologize, and then the next one came out to shake his hand, but he didn't shake his hand, and there was a biffo. And that's another example, just storytelling within a single night. So then by the time that happened, you had sympathy for the person who made the mistake, and people had heat on the guy that was cranky at the guy who made the mistake.
Yeah, exactly. It's good storytelling, man, and being able to do it in short term and also long term. It's an important thing for promotions to be able to do.
It works both ways.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing, talking about championships, you guys, at your last Suplex show, I believe, on the 2nd of May, you guys crowned your first explicit champion. Someone, So someone like yourself who is a fan of that hardcore, aggressive style of wrestling, do you see yourself going down that path of wrestling, more of a deathmatch sort of style? Is that something that has an interest in for you to do?
If given the opportunity, for sure. Yeah, I think so. To be perfectly honest, I haven't got into heaps of deathmatch wrestling. Hardcore wrestling, yeah. Deathmatch wrestling with it, it has a basis in like excessive blood and glass and stuff like that. I've only watched like clippets that people have sent me from wrestling matches, but it definitely seems like something that I could do. It seems like something that I'd be interested in. It seems like something that I can put my body through.
And you talk about telling a great story. You add those elements in, and make it mean something.
Yeah, again, it's also got to be done right too, though. You can't just come out and like, okay, I've got some glass, here you go. You can tell great stories of that because nobody wants to be put through glass. So you can great moments around that.
Good wrestling's good wrestling, right? Like it doesn't matter what genre it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Good comedy wrestling's great. Bad comedy wrestling's fucking brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now sort of, coming back into, now being 2 years into the wrestling business, what's your long-term plans for wrestling?
I'm the kind of person who just lives by putting one foot in front of the other and then seeing what happens. I'm starting to take a couple more, bookings outside of my home fed, and seeing where that where that leads. And I think I'm just going to keep going with that and see who wants JB has it on their shows of what I provide. I'm not about to go out and try and look for work, look for matches, and put myself out there to that degree. But my door's open if people want like the product that I'm producing for Suplex and producing for the other places that I work at. Then hit me up. Like I'm going to say yes because I enjoy doing it. It's fun. In terms of long-term career goals, is this going to be my career? Yeah, probably not. I think I come into it too late. I've already got a career. So I guess, without going down a derogatory path of what people might call a weekend warrior, I guess I would be a weekend warrior. But in saying that, I want to be the best weekend warrior.
But you know what? Like that's the thing. I think anyone can. I think wrestling has a place for anyone who wants to put the work in. Like if you respect the business and you have a career and you just love it and respect it and want to perform and do your thing, I think the term weekend warrior is a bit like, man, okay, but like,
yeah, I agree.
In the grand scheme of things, bro, like you'd consider most indie wrestlers fucking weekend warriors.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I don't think that anybody that knows me, that has been around me and how I train, that can say that I don't respect it. Like as soon as I got into this, like I did my fucking research of how to put on a match. I did my research of who is around that I need to pay attention to. What are these? What's happened in the last couple of years, and like what is professional wrestling? How do I train for it? How do I get my body right for it? How do I make my body look good inside a ring? I've done all that. I've put those yards in. It's not like I've just turned up, give me a belt, here I am. I didn't do that. Like, I've worked for these last 2 years to get where I need to be. But it's just not a long-term career aspiration. I suppose. But I'm going to take whatever comes.
And I appreciate the fact that you're saying it because like I said, there's people that want to strive and make it a career, and I think it's fantastic. But if you're still doing it, you're turning up, multiple times a week to train. You're on time for shows, putting that ring together, getting in there, taking bumps.
Yeah,
you still should be respected by your peers.
Yeah, I'm doing everything the same. Like I'm training inside a ring, 3 times a week. I'm training at the gym six times a week.
There you go. Even your coach is saying that there. You work your butt off. Training at least 3 days a week, man, and to commit yourself to that, having a full-time job, it's commendable, bro. And then also doing your normal weight and conditioning training 6 days a week. It's that you can see there's commitment there to it. It's a weekend warrior just turns up on game day, bro, and just goes, let me do my thing. I wouldn't call you a weekend warrior, bro, at all. Not by a long shot.
It's also, if you would do that, it's disrespecting almost 100 years of people that have done it before me. And even though I'm late into it, I respect that. I respect the people that have shed blood, sweat, and tears literally inside a wrestling ring. That have given up their whole lives for it. That have lost their lives for it. You need to be respectful to those dudes. And
100%. 100%. I cannot agree with you more. But it is that time of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be playing 60 Seconds with Piers. I have warned JB about this or briefed him about it, I should say. So how it's going to work is I'm going to fire questions at JB. He's got 60 seconds to answer them. JB, are you prepared for this?
I fucking guess so.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, you give me the Iggy, I start the clock, bro. That's how this works.
Let's do it, brother.
Would you rather toe-length fingers or finger-length toes?
Oh, finger-length toes, like a monkey.
If you were to release an album, what would it be called?
Conspiracy Theory. Look it up on Spotify and iTunes. It was released last Friday by Bin Lids. Get on it.
There you go. Check it out. Fairy bread or fairy bread with Nutella?
Just fairy bread. Plain
what would your autobiography be called?
One foot in front of the other.
If you could take all the credit for any film in history, what film would it be?
Pulp Fiction.
How old were you when you found out about Santa Claus?
Whoa. Probably real late, like 10, 11.
If you could take all the credit for any song in history, which song would it be?
Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Which celebrity would play you in a movie about your life?
Ooh. A young Brad Pitt, not old Brad Pitt, a young Brad Pitt.
What politician would you sit down and have a beer with?
Shit. Hawk, Bob Hawk. The late
Uber Eats or Menulog?
Uber Eats.
Roller coasters, love them or hate them?
Love them.
Time. That is it. That was 60 seconds with Piers. It wasn't as painful as I told you it was, man. But, man, where can everyone find you and support you, bro?
JB Hazard Facebook page. That's the only social media that I run. I'm not like great into social media. I only got social media to run my band's page and my Hazard page. So you're lucky with Facebook, people. But also check out the SUPLEX Facebook. Check out. I'm pretty sure that Jackson Spay's got everything else. Social
Twitter,
media run
Instagram,
with SUPLEX.
they're all up and running.
He's got the lot. Check that shit out for SUPLEX. Check JB out. I'll be there. Check out Explicit Wrestling, which is on this Saturday. Deathmatch Wrestling comes to the Hunter Valley for the first time fucking ever. So check that out as well.
There you go, guys. And make sure you support JB. Make sure you check out some local wrestling talent. And, guys, make sure you tune in tomorrow morning for Get Funked with Kiwi as he sits down with Kid Romeo. It's going to be a great show. And we got a great lineup of shows for you guys this weekend with Killing the Business with the Kingpin and Guapo, to Knights of the Gimmick Table with the Dead Presidents, Low Rider, and Boogaloo. So make sure you check those shows out. Huge shout out to our sponsors, A-Rock Designs and Signal Studios, for supporting us through another awesome show. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us here at the MWA Podcast Network. But guys, until next time, go and check out JB on Facebook. Give him a follow. JB, can anyone buy any merch of yours? That is going to be the next question. Where can people get some?
Yeah, JB Hazard shirts. Says JB, bring the mongrel. I am the mongrel of Australian professional wrestling. You can buy those shirts. Hit me up on Facebook. I can send some out to y'all.
There you go. Make sure you hit him up. Get a T-shirt. Support some local Aussie wrestling guys. And look, until next time, guys, take care of yourselves. We're going to be doing Shooting the Shit as of next week for the month of June. We're dedicating it to women in wrestling. I'm going to be interviewing for the month of June only women that have been involved and contributed to the business of professional wrestling. I've got some great names lined up for you guys, women from around the world, so you're not going to want to miss an episode. Tune in for that. Saturday night, I'm going to sit down with Rich Boccini from the Keeping It 100 podcast. So make sure you tune in for that, guys. It's going to be a great show. But until next time, guys, take it easy, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
Cheers.